Hello, welcome to Insight Meditation, Community of Charlotte. We have a special guest tonight, and in just a minute I'm going to get her microphone on, get her wired up. But first, I'd like to remind you that just a few weeks ago we were talking about women in Buddhism and how interesting it is that it's been a somewhat challenging path for women in Buddhism to find equal footing with their male counterparts. Now you can hear me. And so we're lucky tonight that we have Ayya Sudhamma with us. She lives in Charlotte. She is a spiritual friend to many here. I have personally benefited from her counseling and teaching. We're very, very lucky that we have her. And so her full name is Venerable Bhikkhuni Ayya Sudhamma Theri. And remember when we were learning about the woman that raised the Buddha, she had Maha in her name, which means great, and Theri means elder. And so you have to have been in robes for at least 2 decades to earn this title. Ayya says we can call her Ayya. Thank goodness. And I put her Wikipedia page out in the foyer because she has been instrumental in restarting the Bhikkhuni gatherings, particularly in the United States. She was the first to be ordained in Sri Lanka, the first woman, and has had many first gatherings. And so she's basically made some history, and she may or may not be talking about that tonight. So please join me in warmly welcoming Venerable Bhikkhuni Ayya Sudhamma Theri. This is already on. No, it's not. That goes behind your ear. Tucks in right there. That feels pretty stable. You might want to test it.
Testing? Yeah, it's quite sensitive.
And you can turn it off right there.
I want to see these people on Zoom. Hello, Zoom people. Hi. There's a lot of them. It's 4 by 5. Oh, I know some of y'all. Hi. Hello. Okay. Okay, y'all are a blur now, sorry. Good evening, everybody. And this is being recorded or no? Is it?
Yes, it is.
So on the way over here, I cut off conversation to figure out what I was going to talk about. So I wrote down some notes, had it ready, and then I learned that y'all are interested in women in Buddhism, so I scrapped that. So I'll talk about that a little bit. Let me start with homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa buddhaṃ dhammaṃ saṅghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. All right, so would anybody here have problems following a Buddha that was mean to women? Hands up if you would have trouble with a Buddha that wasn't all that nice to women. Some of you wouldn't have no problem. Okay, who would not have a problem? If we had a Buddha who scripturally is recorded as being pretty down on females, come on, let's hear it. Who would not have a problem with that? All right, so I had a problem. Okay, not too much detail. Help me, not too much detail. Okay. All right, so I had been a lawyer, I'd been married, I'd had certain plans for life. Cancer upended everything. I was no longer in my career, I was no longer married. And I was trying to find meaning in life now that I knew that it could be taken away any minute. And all I wanted was spiritual development full time. I had met Buddhist monks before the diagnosis, but after the symptoms had made me more and more disabled for a course of about a year. Had mystery symptoms for about a year before I landed in the hospital and quickly into intensive care. Okay, so that happened in March of '93. New Year's Day, so January 1 of '93, I went to a New Year's Day meditation with Thai monks that a friend had invited me to. And when the cancer, so I started learning from these monks that would be visiting. I was living in San Francisco, that would be visiting San Francisco every now and then. And what they were teaching me became a life raft for me. I grabbed onto during the cancer drama. And there I was after the cancer drama. I was getting my strength back, figuring out what to do for a career now that I wasn't being an attorney anymore. And it hit me one day that if I could be like these monks that had taught me the Dhamma, that had gotten me through all of the medical drama, that would be the best gift I could ever give to myself. And it was actually, it came out of a dream. Anyway, so that day I happened to be seeing a visiting monk, and very, respected elder monk. So there was this big gathering, and I got a photograph in front of him because that's what you do with Thai monks. And, and I was just being kind of joyful because I really wanted to do this monk thing now. It hit me that morning. And the monk looked at me from across the room, real long look. Then he called a layman. He had him go over to me. And the layman was very awkward. He's like, I'm sorry, the master told me to come and tell you that you can't become a monk. You can wear white and you can take care of the monks, but you can't be a monk. And I was so crushed by this information, I wasn't even impressed that the monk had read my mind. I didn't care that the monk had just, I had not breathed a word to him about this intention that had formed that morning. I was absolutely crushed, and that was it. I'm like, forget this. What kind of Buddha is that? Doesn't let the women have a chance? Forget it. If I want patriarchy, there's other religions for that, right? Plenty. And I remember I was driving through a certain intersection, and as I was going through the intersection, I was thinking I wanted nothing more to do with all this stuff. But in the middle of the intersection, somehow it occurred to me that it would be a great shame if I gave up the best thing I'd ever come across just because I couldn't get past my inner pain of being one down as a woman, my inner pain. And by the other side of the intersection, I was convinced that I would stick with the Dhamma. I would get some other people to interpret things for me. I wasn't going to dive into the scriptures directly, because that stuff was treacherous. But I was going to give it a shot and learn what I could. And so really that kind of, that led me on my journey. Sorry, I'm screening out all the many extraneous things that want to come up and be said. So life was just you know, I had a new career taking care of disabled people in their homes, and I hung out with monks as much as I could. I would drive them places if I could. I would, anything to do with monks. I would go feed them. I would take care of them. And monks, anything, monks. I would. Sometimes I became a bit of a nuisance, and at one point, my liaison wasn't telling me when the monks were in town, and I would know anyway. And she'd go, "Who told you?" I'm like, haha. I would go see them anyway, because I just knew they were there. I just knew. I don't know how I knew. When I say nuisance, I mean the monks would have to kick me out so they could shower and rest in the afternoon, so I was there anytime they were in town. Okay, so fast forward a bit more, and you know, I learned more about the Dhamma. I started reading, you know, the scripture. I joined a lawyer's meditation group, part of Spirit Rock. I moved into Woodacre, into a house. Disabled lady, living with a disabled lady, just down the street from Spirit Rock. I was 2 houses closer than Jack to Spirit Rock Meditation Center. So anyway, I did broaden my understanding of the Dhamma. And there were some things in the scripture that were downright, like, you know, like when you're just walking along and you get hit by briars and stinging nettles. So there's this real infamous stinging nettle. And I'm trying to, like, I didn't brush up on this material before I came here, so y'all forgive me. I'm going by memory. But there are these group of 5s in the Anguttara Nikaya about, you know, why women go to hell. And, you know, so why women go to hell? Because they're stingy and they're jealous and blah, blah, blah. Like these reasons why women go to hell. Now, don't run away now. I'm just telling you the bad part, but I'm going to tell you the good part in a minute. So, and I don't remember if it's multiple 5s or if it's just that set of 5s, but that set of 5. But, I mean, that is a breath taker, right? Like, ow. Well, guess what? Turns out the same thing appears in the Samyutta Nikaya with more of the story behind it, a whole lot more of the story behind it. The story behind it is that one of the great monks had gone visiting hell, which you do, of course, if you're a great monk. And so he was visiting hell, and he saw some beings in hell that had been human women in the previous life. And so he said, well, what was it about you that led you here? They talked with him. And so these reasons, why do women go to hell, came out of this whole incident. He went and talked to the Buddha. It's like, well, why are women in hell? Well, they go to hell because of these reasons. And it's about actually multiple 5s in the Samyutta Nikaya, and it's about something like 45 reasons. Then the same monk went to a heaven world, and there were all these beings there that had been human women in a previous life. And so then he wanted to know why women go to heaven. And so it gives 45 reasons why women go to heaven. Now, where's the sting? Sometimes you just need to know a little bit more. And there's some scripture on, you know, how women are just so completely enchanted by men, like the sound of a man, the smell of a man, the taste of a man, the look of a man, like all the senses, right? And like it enchants a woman. It just really captures a woman. Women, one down? No, because there's a, you know, side by side the scripture of how a man is captured by a woman, exactly the same way. So more and more, if you just keep looking, you can find parity. Not parody, parity. Like equal. And then there are a few there where you don't have the equal, but some scripture got lost along the way. And it just makes perfect sense that there would be, you know, a matching, balancing one about the guys. Like it. So next time you hit some of these nettles, if you can't figure out how there's probably some parity to be found, call me. Just call me, don't stress over it. Okay, but what about the ordination thing? Like, there are people out there right now today, even now, that are saying, to the effect of, they won't say it to my face, but basically, sorry, Sudhamma, you're just like gonna go to hell because you're pretending to be a monk. Has been said. Or, you're just basically pitiful pretending. Or we know you're trying, but it can't be done, or whatever. Okay, so how did we end up here? How did we end up with a situation where people have a scripture-based argument that you don't belong to the boys' club? How did we get there? So, okay, so we had male and female orders, and the female order flourished so well in the country of Sri Lanka that I don't know exactly what year, but some hundreds of years, not many hundreds of years after the Buddha had passed, there's a record etched in stone of a great gathering having drawn 90,000 bhikkhunis. I'm talking serious flourishing. And then there came an occasion by the, what is it, the 1700s? Sorry, all by memory now, which just is not trustworthy when you're in your 60s. Now I'm struggling with honesty because my memory was poor in my 20s too. So. Anyway, I have an excuse now. But sometime in war conditions, all the male and female monks of Sri Lanka had been killed or frightened out of the robes. There was no more. And a delegation was sent to Thailand to get more monks to reestablish the Sangha, the male monk Sangha. That's it. So that's how you ended up without the female monks in Sri Lanka anymore. They reseeded, they reestablished the male Sangha through Thailand. And then later, that particular group wouldn't ordain low-caste men, and so then the other people who wanted to also join the Sangha sent to Burma for monks to come and reestablish the Sangha so that everybody could ordain. And another group, not in communication with that group, also did the same thing. So you have 3 lineages of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, 2 that came out of Burma and 1 out of Thailand. So there is a whole set of protocols of how you do an ordination for a male monk. There's a whole set of protocols of how you do an ordination for a female monk. And see, some issues started after Buddhism started to get strong, popular. There was a very talented physician who was attending to the Buddha and the monks, and men who had diseases, who had really life-threatening situations or life-altering illness, chronic diseases, started joining the Sangha just to get the medical care. And once they were well, they would drop out. And the physician was kind of unhappy about this, so he asked the Buddha to not ordain men who had various illnesses. So then before a man got ordained, he had to be asked whether he had certain illnesses. Epilepsy was among them. And then, somebody ordained who actually was in the service of a king. So then it was really not a good thing. If you're supposed to be a soldier, you're supposed to be a soldier. You can't go escape into the Sangha. But out of respect for the Sangha, the king might not force him back. So, okay, so you can't be in the service of a king. Well, and then as more rules came, you can't, be in debt and so on and so on. So you needed to question men before they joined the Sangha, right? You have to make sure the candidate is sound in various ways. Are they old enough and so forth? So there's all these questions. They're called, these stumbling blocks that you have to make sure they don't have. Well, on the female side, you have stumbling blocks you have to question about too. Some of the same ones as the guys. Now, one of the guys' questions is, that does, is he intact as a man? Like, because you couldn't have conditions that would cause ridicule or loss of respect. And if the monks are going to end up not getting fed because people with certain conditions would join them in large numbers because they're rejected by society, then that's a problem, right? With the women, their situation was very, very tenuous. So the Buddha had monks doing ordinations, and there's a whole story behind it, a whole process. I think actually I should go back and explain this. The very first people that the Buddha ordained by him saying, "Come, monk." So he calls this layperson or ascetic a monk or a bhikkhu, ehi bhikkhu, come bhikkhu, and that's their ordination. Then later he said, okay, monks, you don't have to send them all to me from everywhere in the world. You can ordain them, give them the 3 refuges. So for a long time, their ordination was reciting the refuges and then with the intention of becoming an ordained disciple, and then they were bhikkhus. So, and then as time went on, you had all the questioning things, so it became like a little play where a monk would be informed of, a man would be informed of what the questions are, and then off to the side, and then he would be brought in front of the Sangha and questioned again, and he would answer that he's okay in this way, in this way, in this way, in this way. So, are you a human being? Amma Bhante, yes, sir. And so on. And so it would go through all these questions. They would go through all these questions. So it turns into like a little skit, a little play of, taking them off to the side, warning them what all the questions are, running them through them, and then taking them in front of the gathered monks, questioning again, and then reciting, okay, so this is his preceptor, here's his robes and bowl, and he's pure with all of the stumbling blocks, and would you ordain him? We make the motion that you ordain him. We all ordain him. If anyone has an objection, speak up. If you have no objection, stay quiet. And then say the whole thing again. He's got, these are his robes and bowls, and he's got this person as a preceptor, and he cleared the stumbling blocks, and it would be good if you ordain him, if stay quiet if you approve, or speak up if you don't approve, and then a third time going through it. That is the male monk ordination in a nutshell. The Buddha said, okay, female monks will be questioned in the same way by the male monks. No problem, right? You have certain issues and situations that among women were actually a list of slurs, like, you're a bleeder, you're a barren, you're a this, you're a that were spoken to be extremely cruel to women. And so women who actually had those conditions were not marriageable, meaning that they are socially way down, and they were going into the female Sangha in numbers, and the women were not going to get fed. This was an existential crisis for the female order, that they were not going to succeed. Their situation of approval by the lay people was extremely tenuous. So the questioning included, are your sexual characteristics able to be seen? Like, are you clearly female in the look? Do you have excessive bleeding? Do you have no bleeding? Not because of menopause. Apparently you could do that, but do you have no bleeding because of God knows what kind of health condition could be behind that? Do you pee yourself? Are you incontinent? Are your labia formed correctly? Now, just imagine, here you have like the society, the inequality of male and female in that society is hard to fathom. From everything I've read in the scripture, the commentaries, the stories, I reckon the legal standing of a woman in that society at that time about the same as an American house cat. I mean, you can't abuse them beyond a certain point, if people know. But if you see one that doesn't have an owner, you could scoop it up and take it home. So, yeah, really weighed one down. And then these men of the Sangha were amazing human beings. Some of them were ministers to kings, even kings. These amazing male human beings questioning a woman about these kind of details. What do you think happened? Who could speak up? They were just choked. They froze. They couldn't speak, so they couldn't ordain. So to get over that obstacle, the Buddha said, okay, female monks question the female candidates of all those stumbling blocks. And when they pass that questioning, then the male monk Sangha will be told, okay, this is this candidate, this is her name, this is her preceptor, she's got her robe and bowls, she's passed the questioning, she's pure in the stumbling blocks. Do you approve? Be silent. If you don't approve, speak up. Second time, third time, pass. So basically, they're rubber stamping the female monk's approval unless she happens to be known to them as a troublemaker in some sort of way that they could say, nope, they could veto. So it is a rubber stamp unless there's some reason for a veto. That's dual ordination. And that's why we have dual ordination. Is it unfair that it was basically the men giving the approval? Well, actually, there's this little bitty bit in the scripture that nobody seems to talk about, where it's noted that the male monks weren't really able to keep track of what was going on in the legal system of the female monks. Like sometimes a female monk would have misbehaved so badly that everyone had agreed that she couldn't go to any of the gatherings, like she's in a punishment phase, and yet she would show up and the male monks wouldn't know any better and allow her to be there, that sort of thing. And the Buddha said, okay, Bhikkhunis, you take care of your own legal matters from now on. Nobody talks about that one. So I figure one of these days we'll take over. You just have to be patient, you just have to be patient. Okay. So that is the background of it. Given this being the background of dual ordination, that the Buddha was removing an obstacle to female ordination because they were too shy to speak up in front of the male monks, does it make sense to say, no, we can't ordain women because we don't have women? Okay, let me back up a little bit. Mahapajapati, Gotami, begged for ordination. Why did the Buddha end up saying yes? You know that story? Y'all went over it, didn't you, right? Just the other day?
Somebody went to bat for her.
Okay, so she asked him 3 times, and his answer, I'm told, because I'm not great on Pali, but his answer was to the effect of, don't set your heart on this. He didn't say no, never. He just said, don't set your heart on it 3 times. Then the women shaved their heads, put on robes, and walked 200 miles as the crow flies. 200 miles, not counting all of the byways. But if you'd had a helicopter, it would have been 200. So they walked a long way. The ancient commentary speculates that the Buddha caused it to happen in this way because the women proved their power, their strength, to be living on alms and walking. They were delicate ladies of the palace. They proved to themselves in this journey. That's 5th century speculation, which is actually more liberal than some of the speculation today. Go figure. So they showed up outside the monastery but didn't dare just barge in, and they're out there with their feet bleeding and crying. And Ananda comes up upon them, and he finds out what the deal is. He goes and he asks the Buddha 3 times, saying, okay, Mahapajapati was so good to you, and you've been so good to her, and he gives this spiel. And therefore it would be good if you would ordain her. And the Buddha said the same thing, don't set your heart on it 3 times. Now, asking 3 times is sort of a limit. It's a thing. You see it all over the scripture. So Ananda paused, and then he tried a different approach. And he said, Lord, if a woman were to live with this Dhamma Vinaya in the holy life. Could she attain the first stage of awakening? Yes. Second stage of awakening? Yes. Third stage of awakening? Yes. Final and fourth stage of awakening? Yes. In that case, Lord, Mahapajapati was very good to you, and you've been very good to her in these ways. And given that women can attain first, second, and third, and final stages of liberation, living the holy life, it would be good if women could ordain? Yes. He said yes the first time it was not put just in terms of his personal relationship to his aunt and foster mother, Mahapajapati. The first time it was put in terms of women's liberation, he got a yes. And so then he said, I allow you, O monks, to ordain women. And so they just started ordaining them. And then the women turned around and said, well, we got ordained, but you're not ordained, to Mahapajapati, because there was that whole thing about some Garudhamma. And then the Buddha says, okay, when she accepted the Garudhamma, that was ordination for her. The Garudhamma is a really, really, really sticky topic that I could do multiple talks on. But it's the 8 important rules that the Buddha set down before he said, after he said the approval for women's ordination. And these 8 rules include dual ordination. What's wrong with this picture? It's an anachronism because dual ordination evolved later in the way I described. But according to scripture, he said it as a condition of the first ordination that women will have training for 2 years. These women did not have training for 2 years. They were ordained by the monks immediately. There's so much, and there's so much. I tend to approach the scripture saying, it's here, it's in black and white, it's probably true, I'm gonna work with it, I want it to be true. And I tried so hard to make the 8 Garudhamma work, I really did. And there's just too many contradictions with other material. There's so much more to be said on this topic. Let me see if there's any one that I want to highlight. Yeah, I want to go back to this business of ordination. Okay, given that he said, I allow you, O monks, to ordain women, and he never took it back. He just later said, okay, add this detail, now do it this way, now add this, now add that, like he did with ordination to men. So the ordination became this more complex, like a skit. So given that you have this ordination ritual that requires the female monks to do the questioning before the male monks do the final ordination, to have dual ordination first by the women, then by the women monks, then the men monks. And given that he said, I allow you, O monks, to ordain women, why is there a problem with monks ordaining women when the female Sangha has vanished in the world? Why would that be a problem? But for some people, it is a very serious problem of the Vinaya. You must have female monks in order to ordain female monks. So the very thing the Buddha established to overcome an obstacle is the obstacle. Thanks. It makes a lot of sense, right? I know another thing I want to mention in this talk. Why do the women have so many more rules? Such oppression. Clearly he didn't want women in robes, because look how he oppresses these sisters. Right? Heard that one? So it's funny when feminist and misogynist meet each other with the same idea. He was against the women. He's bad. No, he's good. Therefore, he's against the women. All right. He wasn't against the women. If you have rules for your children, does that mean you hate them? If you have some kids who need some more rules to be safe and okay, does it mean you hate them? Or does it mean you love them more? Or does it mean that the circumstances called for a different approach with some kids than others? Do any of you parents have some stricter rule for some particular kid? Have multiple kids with a stricter rule or two for some of them because they just needed it more? But does it mean you hate the kid that needed an additional rule? Like you can't take the car because they crashed two of them? Or something like that? So it doesn't mean that you hate them, right? Okay, so let's just start with a basic understanding. More rules doesn't mean hate, right? Okay, so that's a bottom line. Now, are there more rules for the female monks? Sort of, because you do have 311 versus 227 of the males. But there are two facts that make it almost meaningless that there's this difference. One is that the women's rules are numbered differently. And one is that the monks and nuns actually have thousands of rules. These are just the ones that get highlighted. Thousands of rules and sub-rules. And in the context of thousands, what's really the difference in 227 versus 311? So the Buddha said, don't do that, that's a bad thing. Don't do that, that's a bad thing. Adukkata. Don't do this, it's a bad thing. So the dukkatas, many of the dukkata, many of them, many don't do this, don't do that. It's a bad thing, it's a dukkata. But they're not listed in the list of rules. And there are lots of places where he gave protocols and say, do things in this way. There's a protocol, but not in the list of rules. And some of those protocols ended up in the women's list, but not in the men's list, even though they have the same rules as protocols. Following me? There's an extra 20 rules just on how ordinations have to be done with the female monks that are in the male monks' code of behavior, but just didn't rise to the level of one of the rules that are listed and recited. And then you have other issues like there's some fancy foods that when you ask for them, that's a no-no. Don't ask for these fancy foods. You should not be doing that. So it's listed as one rule in the monks. See, there's a code, there's a monk code, a legal code, and there's a female monk legal code. It's listed as one rule in the monk legal code, and it's 8 separate rules in the female legal code. The numbers are just like inflated. They're fluffed by these various things. Are there some substantive differences? There are. In the day-to-day living, not a lot, but there are some substantive differences. And one most remarkable and most difficult substantive difference has to do with travel. There were circumstances where nuns were raped, or there was a fear that they had been raped. 4 separate situations are set forth as, we thought you got raped, or ladies, we got raped. And in those 4 cases, the Buddha says, okay, don't you be traveling by yourself in these ways. Don't be by yourself in these ways. And so they're all in travel context. These 4 situations in one of, I think it's Sangha Sesa number 3 or Sangha Sesa number 4. I've always been bad with numbers. Always. When I was in my 20s, it hit me that somebody's going to realize how bad I am with numbers in my 70s and declare that I have Alzheimer's. So this travel rule is there to give safety to the women in robes. And it is one of the few rules that actually has an impact on day-to-day living. Like you don't go, some monk might decide to go walk the Appalachian Trail by himself, and he could do that. And that is not an option for a female monk for obvious reasons. And how to interpret that in modern times is very much a matter of individual ideas at this moment. We have not yet come together with a codification of exactly what this means. Can you get in a car and drive, to 3 blocks down the road? Where's the danger? Well, can you get in a car and drive to the other side of town? Well, can you get in the car and drive to the next town when it's basically city from here to there because we've already torn out all the forest and stuff? Can you? There is debate around that. Can you get on a plane? You're probably safer in a US airport than anywhere in the world from any kind of assault. Are you kidding me? You raise a hue and cry, you think you're not going to have 25 militiamen running towards you? Nothing safer. I would not get on a bus in India by myself. As a woman in robes, I would not do that. So I'm sorry, in my intro, there was a slight misunderstanding. I was not the first female monk in Sri Lanka. I was the first Westerner to get the female monk ordination from the male and female monks in Sri Lanka. There were about 400 Sri Lankan Bhikkhunis ahead of me. And half a dozen Western women in robes as Theravada Bhikkhunis ahead of me. This is very much Theravada Mahayana. They have a long lineage, long unbroken lineage, but of the Theravada Western Bhikkhunis, there's half a dozen ahead of me that got higher ordination in various other ways. At least one of them by male monks only. All right, so I think I'm gonna put a bookmark in it here and give you folks the opportunity for questions. Now, in my lineage, in Sri Lankan lineage, it is absolutely required that when a monk gives a talk, you must say sadhu 3 times. So I want to see y'all unmuting here. Y'all blurry that I can see whether you're muted or not. So unmute, I want to hear 3 sadhus. Now here's the thing though. I saw that the lousiest talk, the lay people would say sadhu, 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 sadhu. But if it was a really good talk, they would shout sadhu. So I'm going to hear how this talk landed on the sadhu Richter scale. I'm waiting.
Sadhu,
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 sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
That's getting close to an A. A minus, maybe a B plus, somewhere in there. Thank you. Y'all better mute again or you're going to be driving each other crazy with feedback. Unless anybody on Zoom have a question? I'll give them the first shot. Make it short though. People can't stand hearing things online really long. Somebody unmute if you have a question. You want me to address a particular thing having to do with women in Buddhism.
Sometimes they chat again.
Uh-oh, where's the chat? Nope, nothing.
Just a gratitude. Thank you. That was really amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Elizabeth. Okay, so what about y'all? What have I not covered? What are the questions still in your mind? Anybody still have some doubt about whether the Buddha was even-handed with women? Ooh, I got some more info. I just thought of something else to mention. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, for those male and female, why do you seek ordination?
I'm not sure if wait, I don't have my glasses on again, so hang on, let me see if I've got you in their sights. Where are you? Okay, there you are. All right, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just said, I'm curious why would somebody seek the ordination?
Why would anybody want to do this crazy thing? No movies, no sex, like what? You're not eating at night? What a nutty thing to do. The Buddha set up the ordained disciple community to create ideal conditions for awakening. It may or may not be ideal conditions today. This is highly subject to debate. And it can be really, temple specific as to whether, it's ideal, even in the old days. The Visuddhimagga commentary has a long list of problems in monasteries that should cause you to leave. One of which is getting too skilled at doing any of the chores. So why would anyone do this? Now, lay life is, in some cases, right here among us, some people have a lay life of leisure and able to spend their time focused on spiritual matters and meditating. Some people's lay life is an incredibly hard grind. So think of lay life in terms of the incredibly hard grind. You're surviving day to day, and your next thought is, how do I get food on the table for me and my children? How do I do it? How do I do it? How do I do it? Day after day after day. Now you have this other option the Buddha has introduced, that you don't have to go out and be like an intense ascetic, like, standing on one leg all day to impress people enough to give you food. But you don't have to do these extreme self-mortifications, but you can be a middle-of-the-road ascetic who's living a life that's comfortable enough to live a long, healthy, good life with a mind clear and the face bright, the complexion clear and good, and not oppressed by harsh conditions and harsh rituals that these other ascetic practitioners were often required to do. So this middle-of-the-road path of you take care of the body and you eat normally, but not too much. And you have these conditions where your body is well taken care of, and the lay people are the ones doing the hard work of manifesting the food. And you just, whatever they want to donate goes into your begging bowl. But in ancient India, you're gonna get food. You might even get more food than the average layperson if food is a bit scarce. And so you're going to be fed, and your needs are going to be extremely simple. You're not going to be oppressing the lay people with fancy wishes, and you have this life that's absolutely dedicated to awakening, full on. And when you're in robes, you get a front row seat to some of the best teachers, the best monastics. I've gotten teachings from Bhikkhu Bodhi just because of being in the robes. I've gotten teachings from Ajahn Brahm just because of being in the robes. He's paid special attention
Ben?
to
Ben?
because,
I'm sorry, can you take your laundry out? Because I have to move mine over. And I put yours in that
it
dryer.
would be good if
You
everyone
didn't move it.
Hold on, where's
Okay,
because
the
we're hearing about laundry.
white thing? Oh, there's the white tape.
Yeah, they're not getting it. Let's see. Okay. Got it. Where was I? So why would anyone want to do it? Good God, why do you not? Oh my God. I mean, it's like the world's best scam. Like you can get the best, the world's best scam. I said it. You can quote me. Only in context though. Because you get to focus your mind on the best thing that any human life could ever be about. There's nothing more valuable. There's nothing more meaningful, even possible in this world, or in heaven, or in hell. Like there's nothing more meaningful, even in heaven. This is the most meaningful thing that could possibly happen, that you put your mind towards awakening. This is amazing. It's radical. It's incredible. And we get to do it for free. All you gotta do is give up, sex and movies and eating at night. I mean, come on. A lot of people give these things up just 'cause.
I noticed that a lot of Theravada teachers now have taken robes in the past for maybe a year, maybe 5 or 6 years, and then become a layperson again. Is there anything wrong with that? Is that frowned upon? Is that I think that's kind of interesting because there seem to be quite a few.
What a wonderful question. And you just reminded me that when I just realized I wanted to go forth as a monastic, my parents still thought I was Christian at that point, so we had a little catching up to do. Like I was a coward. I didn't have the hard conversations beforehand. I'm like, I gotta tell them. So then all these letters were coming like, why are you giving up Jesus? I'm like, oh, Mom. And what I told them, it was just a little bit of a fib, but what I told them was that I would get this on my resume of being a nun, and that I could become a lay teacher. I was about 10 years in when my mother said, well, when are you gonna give this up? I'm like, oops, I'm not. It really did calm her down. My parents are Baptist. In Thailand, there evolved a practice of ordaining for temporary periods. A weekend, a week, a month, 3 months of the monsoon rainy season. A year, it's a thing, they just choose a period of time. And it's such a tradition that employers allow a man to have a sabbatical from work to go become a monk for a while. It's a thing. It is such a thing in Thailand that they have a saying, a man is not ready for marriage until he's been a monk. Literally, they say a man is not ripe. He's not ripened. He's not ripe for marriage until he's been a monk. This does lead to some awkward situations where women go shopping for husbands among the monks. That is not ideal. You do not want that, and it does happen. There was a monk one time who was being very stinky, and another monk explained that he was deliberately being stinky because there was this one woman stalking him for husband material. And so his teacher said, just stop bathing. So he did. And she's like, venerable sir, think you might bathe? He's like, nope. Sri Lankan tradition, you ordain, you are doer for life. And it is an extreme shame on the family if you quit. The family will push you to stay, because they are humiliated if their son gives up the robes. That is old days. Nowadays everything's, a little softer, but that is the old tradition. So then you have these Westerners who ordain and then they step down. As I understand it with the Thai tradition, it's kind of a matter of the expectations that you give people. Did you just ordain to kind of share the merits with your mom for a season? Or did you ordain thinking, I'm going to do this for life? You kind of put it out there in Thai tradition, from what I've seen. And sometimes a lot of monks go in just temporary, realize they love it, and stay. I did meet monks who had done that. But when the Westerners get ordination in Sri Lankan tradition and then they do the quit thing, it's really a shock to their teachers. I've been really, it's been extremely jarring to me when I've helped conduct the ordination of a woman and then she just steps out the robes. I'm like, how could you do that to us? Like it's terrible to me when someone gives up. In fact, I coined a term for it. I call it when someone quits being a monastic, I call it monasticide. Yeah, they're committing monasticide by stepping down. Because we had a monk, we had a female monk, and now they're a layperson again. It's like we lost our monk. They're gone. Yes, Debbie. Wait, there's the thing is right there.
I'm so loud, I really don't need it, but isn't it true that men can more readily take robes and leave and then go back, and women cannot?
That is a really, really good question. Venerable Tanisra goes so far as to call it a constructive parajika. Parajika is when you commit an offense so bad that you're done, you can't even become a monk again in this life, like you kill somebody. And then there are certain other circumstances where you cannot reordain, and he called those constructive parajikas, that you just can't ordain again. And he called that for a female monk to step down, you can't come back. Because if you're trying to get rid of one gender, you find every way you can. I'm just saying. It is a tradition in Mahayana that a bhikshuni, a female monk, cannot reordain. I don't know where they get it. It's not in the Vinaya. And Venerable Tanisra has a footnote dropped on that assertion that a woman cannot come back, and it's a footnote to a different rule. He put a footnote to the rule that if someone if someone goes to the fold of another religious group, like if I were to get baptized in robes, like it is such an insult to the religion to go into, not visit, but like go join another religious group as though this is the right spiritual path. While wearing the robes, it's a humiliation, to the Sangha. It's a repudiation of the Sangha. And you cannot come back. If you're a man or a woman in robes, you can't come back. But it's the footnote there to the statement about female monks not being able to come back if they've done that, gone to the fold of another religion, is what he gave as the reason for why women cannot come back at all. It was accidental, disingenuous, I don't know. But I have not seen any justification based on the Bali canon as to why a woman cannot reordain. Male monks reordaining, there's a funny story behind it where there was this layman who realized the monks were throwing away a lot of food. And he's like, what is all this food? They're like, oh, if you want it, you could dumpster dive and have it, fine. And so he's dumpster diving, and then he's like, why am I working so hard? With the plow and the ox every day, I could be eating like these men. So he ordained. But then he started remembering his wife, and so he went back to lay life. And so then he started remembering the food and not having to work, and he went back to the Sangha. Then he remembered his wife, and he went back to lay life. And this happened 6 times. And then finally his wife was pregnant, and she was not careful about how she was laying down, and he saw the belly in such a way that he became kind of horrified about her body and samsara, and he's like, this is all very overwhelming, and samsara is just a really terrible place. And so reflecting on that, he went back and begged for ordination a 7th time, and they said, we've been sharpening our razors on you all these times, we're not doing it again. And he begged and he begged, and they're like, okay, one more time. They ordained him, he became an arahant this time. So the tradition arose 7 times is it. It is 8:30. We could stop now unless somebody has some kind of other question or something else to address. Is there anything on your hearts that makes you feel sad about women in Buddhism that you want to mention? Do not venture into the last chapters of the Jataka, trust me. It's bad. It's bad. There's some Jataka stories that are these ancient Indian fables that got into scripture that are so misogynistic. It's just like knock your socks off. But that's not from the fault of the Buddha. Okay? Are we all done? All right. Okay, and now we have metta.